Good morning and good afternoon and good evening. Welcome to our webinar on supply chain technology revolutionizing the food industry. Today it's co-hosted by TSC Printronics Auto ID, Smart Label Solutions, and PLM TrustLink. My name is Charles Vincent from PLM and TrustLink, and I will be your host and moderator today as we share how our companies are cooperating to revolutionize food supply chain traceability with modern RFID-enabled technologies. I am pleased to be joined today by three industry-leading experts from SLS, PLM TrustLink, and TSC Printronics. A quick introduction before we get into our main program today. Our distinguished panelists are Chris Brown, with 25 years in the auto ID industry, and is currently the RFID SME for TSC Printronics. We also have Kyle Laszlo, with 6 years at SLS, specializing in solution design and business development. And our third panelist today is Murli Ram, 25 years of manufacturing and supply chain experience in technology platforms. Our three panelists are joining us from all over the country today, and they will be live taking our questions. Today, we're going to go to tell the story of avocados from the farm to the restaurant, how customers can use TSC Printronics printers and media, SLS RFID readers, tunnels and portals, all in harmony with PLM TrustLink's SaaS solution for supply chain transparency, traceability, and trust. Through the beauty of remote technology today, our journey will start at the farm to see pick, pack, and ship operations. Then we will transition to a food processor distribution facility to see receiving, warehousing, and shipping operations. And the third and final leg of our digital journey today will be at the restaurant to see receiving and proof of delivery. Throughout this webinar, we will share a video at each stage, then hear a presentation from our distinguished panelists, and open the floor for live Q&A after each section. So please put your questions in the chat window and we'll moderate those. And without any further ado, let's travel to Rancho Vasquez's avocado farm in Southern California.
Our journey through the food supply chain today starts at a family-owned organic avocado farm in Southern California. The worker prints and encodes RFID labels in the field with a TSC Printronics Auto ID RFID mobile printer. This printer operates with Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and smart battery to mark the collection bins with critical product information such as fruit type, batch number, harvest location, and date picked. After harvesting, the fruit is carefully sorted to customer specifications. Depending on the customer's requirements, we can provide physical RFID labels at the item, carton, or pallet levels. The next step in this journey is to mark the product carton and assign its digital identity. The mobile RFID printer provides a quick and easy approach to print and encode the RFID barcode labels to GS1 standards, on-site and on demand. With a sweep of an RFID reader, the operator quickly captures all the product data digitally. The PLM TrustLink software now maintains the product information as a digital twin in the cloud. The physical products are now digitized, enabling complete tracking and tracing of the avocados throughout the supply chain. The freshly picked organic avocados continue their journey inside the temperature-controlled PLM refrigerated trailer to the next stage in the supply chain. Next stop, the wholesale distributor in Ohio.
There you saw how the flexible and easy the PLM solution is for farmers to 1, uniquely mark, 2, digitize food products, and 3, use the data in the cloud for use throughout the supply chain in GS1 standard format. Now let's hear in more detail about how this works in practice from Chris on RFID printers and Murli on digitizing the product with TrustLink Cloud. Again, this is live, so I'm seeing a few questions coming in. Please submit questions in the chat window so after Chris and Murli, we can take those questions while the avocados are in transit to the processors. Chris?
Thank you, Charles. Okay, the first printer we saw was the our new Alpha 40L mobile RFID printer. And the key takeaway here is that by using a mobile RFID printer, we are able to digitize the product, in this case, the avocados, the batches of avocados, directly at the point of harvest. By doing this very early in the food processing chain, it helps us ensure that the products are correctly identified. Traditionally, the products would first be labeled much later at some collection site. When that happens, there are all kinds of opportunities for errors and mistakes. Batches can be confused accidentally, batches can be accidentally mixed together. But if we digitize the product here at the point of harvest, we come very close to guaranteeing that the correct product is correctly identified with the correct information. And that's being done with our Alpha 40L RFID mobile printer. Here are a few basic specs on this printer. First up, it has what we call RFID auto calibration built directly into the printer. This means that you can load a new type of RFID label into the printer. You press a few buttons and the printer will figure out the RFID parameters of that label, and then you can go ahead and use that label. Traditionally, these mobile RFID printers, you had to connect them to a PC in order to configure and set up a new RFID label type, but not with this one. Secondly, the printer supports labels not only that are separated by a black mark, but you can also use labels that are separated with just a gap. The benefit here is that labels without a black mark and only a gap are usually about a half a penny cheaper per label. So you can save a little bit of money just by using gap. Next up is that the printers have what we call encode during print functionality. I wouldn't worry about the details here, but it has two main benefits. The first up is the throughput speed. It makes the printer much faster. And secondly, it allows the printer to work with a much wider variety of RFID label constructions, so different types of RFID labels. The printer is available as Bluetooth only or both Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Out in the field, the worker was probably using Bluetooth with the printer connected to some kind of handheld device like a cell phone or a tablet. But in the collection site, the printers might have been connected to the company network through Wi-Fi, so both options are available. And this printer, like all of our RFID printers, is RAIN RFID. You may not be familiar with that term, but it's the term we're trying to promote for your basic bread and butter type of industrial RFID. If you've been following the news lately and heard about Walmart reigniting their RFID efforts, or Nordstrom's or Macy's, all of those companies, their RFID projects are based on RAIN RFID. You may know it by some different names such as EPC or UHF passive, but we're trying to push the name, the single, simple, clear name of RAIN RFID. And now I'm going to pass it off to Murli, who's going to talk a little bit about the software side of the equation. Murli?
Thank you, Chris. You heard about how to digitize products. You got to see how to digitize products. One of the key points that Chris made is you got to digitize as early as possible, whether you're doing it for visibility and transparency within your own four walls or through the supply chain. You want to digitize as quickly as possible, right at the farm when possible. That's where the Printronix printers are quite helpful, that you can wear them on your belt and just print them. And what Trustlink is able to do is, digitize your products in multiple ways. It could be as simple as you have a handheld device that you have in your pocket, you pull up and log in and then print, or it could be a workbench that you use to preview the print and digitize the tag, or it could even be serialized on the printer itself, depending on the connectivity that you have. So there's multiple ways to digitize a product, but whether it's for traceability or even FSMA 204, which is coming down the pipe, it is critical for you to digitize and have the right metadata, which gives you all the key data elements needed and becomes the first critical tracking event as well as part of the FSMA 204 process. Here, I'm going to show you one way to digitize a product. Let's log on to TrustLink. And then when you log on to TrustLink, it's a multi-tenancy is one of our key capabilities. So as a farmer, you may be selling products or packaging products as multiple companies or branded as multiple company products as well. In this case, as Charles mentioned, we're Rancho Vasquez. Let's choose that. And once you choose that, we're actually packing a pack of avocados today. Let's do that. And voila, immediately you get a label. This is just a print preview of what it looks like. And as Chris mentioned, we actually visually print what you see here, and we also digitize and encode the tag using RAIN RFID and of course GS1 compliant as well. And let's go on to the next slide. So once the printing is done, let's say as an operations manager at Rancho Vasquez, you want to see how many cartons you've digitized, you log on to Workbench. I'm going to spend a minute showing you around in our Workbench. On the top left side, you have multiple modules, tracking and digitization, import, export data out of that, and configuration of alerts and such. You're able to do that. And if you go to the next slide, you get to see some of the different capabilities of what all can you filter the data by. Depending on the level of access you have, you can filter them by orders and trailers and loads and food items or pallets. You name it. So you're able to do that by that. And of course, once you select a specific item, it gives you the history of that item from a timeline perspective on the bottom right-hand side. On the top right side, you get to see all the metadata relevant to that specific product. Again, it could be as granular as a specific tree, a row of trees, a farm. We give you the flexibility to capture the granularity. And ultimately, the idea here is when you have a situation, it's not just a lot number. If you want whatever level of granularity you need for you to be able to give visibility, whether it's a recall or even to identify a specific product or a specific tree or a specific row of trees, we give you that capability. And of course, it is ST296. That all comes out of the metadata that we could get from your ERP system if you have one. If not, we build that for you. And one of the key messages, some of our customers may not have a company prefix yet. At TrustLink, we can actually acquire the company prefix for you and build a GT number for you as well to enable you to become GS1 compliant if there was a need for that. Back to you, Charles.
Thank you, Chris and Murli. Now let's take some questions from the audience. I see a few in the queue here. I don't think we can cover them all now, but let's get a couple in. Chris, I think the first one's going to come to you. It's going to be about specialty sensor labels. So the question is, we are looking at using sensor labels and or dual frequency labels. As I understand, these special labels use special chips in the RFID portion. Do your printers work with these labels chips? If I want to put RFID labels on, for example, critical. Okay, that's the end of that question.
Yes, that would be my can of worms. RFID printers are set up so that they need to know certain things about the chip in the label, the chip that's in use. Our printers are pre-configured with many different chips, including several sensor chips and dual frequency chips. So we need to know the memory configuration of the chip, and we need to know if there are any special commands involved, such as with sensor chips, you need to set up the temperature. If it was a temperature sensor, you might set up the temperature range and the temperature intervals. You need to set these things up when you are printing and encoding that label. So we already support a number of sensor chips, and we support 2 different dual frequency chips. But if our printer does not specifically support the chip that you want to use, please contact us and we can work with you to get that chip support added.
Let me add something to that. As part of supporting multiple chips, TrustLink is able to start logging at the printer level using Printronix printers, and then read them at the SLS portal when you're receiving as well, or if you're at the restaurant. We'll talk about that in a bit. We are able to do that as well. And this is where the power of SLS and SLS portals, TrustLink as a software, we're able to temperature log data all the way through the supply chain. But the key is ensuring the chip is supported by our platforms. That's the key message here. Back to you, Charles.
Thanks, Murli. Hey, here's another question I think is going to be for you. What if my company is not following GS1 standards today? Is that required?
Good question. I touched on that briefly earlier. So, I mean, GSM standards are really enabling you to be compliant from the perspective that you can exchange product and product data with the supply chain. If you're just tracking the product within your four walls, you probably don't need to be GSM compliant, even though we do recommend that. But the moment you are transferring product, selling it, or even somebody else is consuming it, it is in your best interest to become GS1 compliant. This is where we're able to enable you to become GS1 compliant. With the first step is to obtain a company prefix, but then the nuances beyond that of building the ST296, like you described. Even if you're not using RFID tags, even with barcodes, it is preferred that you use GS1 standards to be able to do that. Nowadays, you couldn't even build a UPC without a GS1 company prefix. So we'll be more than happy to help you with that. Hopefully that answered your question.
One more question before we go on to the next stage. And Chris, I think this will be coming to you. What are you actually encoding to those labels? And maybe this is a Chris Murley question. Chris?
Yeah, I can start off on that one. So what we saw with the farmer, he was encoding what we would call a GS1 SG1096, and that's made up of different data elements, the encoding part. First up, there's a company prefix that says which company is involved here. Then there is some kind of item identifier number that says these are organic Hass avocados in a case of 58 avocados, something like that. And then the third data element is a unique serial number that uniquely identifies that particular instance of the product. In the case of the sorting facility, that would be that particular carton of those avocados. Murley, you got anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of your existing systems may not be able to keep track of at a serial level or at a carton level, whether it's a ERP system or you're an Excel spreadsheet that you may be using. This is where we will be able to do that, and we can keep track of that at a carton level. So there are some future GSM standards coming to embed more data. That's down the road. In the near term, what Chris said is spot on, and that's more than sufficient. Any other metadata you need, we're able to provide that through our trusted platform.
Thank you, Murley. Thank you, Chris. In the interest of time, let's move on to the next stage in our journey. We can take more questions as we go, and then at the end, we'll have plenty of open time to get through all the backlog. So next stop on our journey is the food processor and wholesale distributor, Drake's Foods in Worthington, Ohio, where we will see the avocados arrive, get received, stored, picked, packed, processed, palletized, prepared, and shipped to their Mexican restaurant customer. So without further ado, let's go to Ohio.
The organic avocados from California arrive at the wholesale distributor and are unloaded. As the pallets come off the trailer, the smart labels are quickly read by the SLS D-Series portal and matched against their digital twins in the TrustLink cloud. A green light indicates the right product has been received. Cartons are put away according to warehouse management location instructions. When a customer order is received, correct items are picked, stacked, and moved to processing. At the processing station, the operator bags the fruit from multiple farmers and packs the items in cartons, generating a new lot number for the customer case pack. The operator uses a TSC Printronix Auto ID T4000 printer to print and encode the RFID labels. This digitizes the new cartons and updates the digital twin in the PLM TrustLink cloud with the new GS1 data. The freshly packed cases are processed with automated verification using a specialized RFID tunnel from SLS. A green light indicates the correct boxes are passing through the tunnel. Out-of-spec cases trigger a red light for further disposition, inspection, and correction. Verified cases are loaded on pallets for specific customer orders. At the pallet wrap station, the digitally marked labels are read by the integrated SLS reader and verified against the customer order. The TrustLink software triggers the T6000E RFID printer to print the SSCC label for the pallet. The pallet is now ready for transit. At trailer load, the SLS portals and TrustLink software again work in unison to verify the right product going on the right truck for the right customer order. A green light indicates success, while incorrect loads would trigger a red light. The product is now on a PLM trailer, ready to continue the journey to the grocers, restaurants, and merchants.
Wow, there you saw a lot. You saw how SLS RFID readers, tunnels, and portals, TSC Printronics Auto ID media and printers, and PLM TrustLink software are all working together inside the four walls, from receiving to processing to shipment, for wholesalers, distributors, and food processors, helping ensure the right product gets on the right trucks with the right quantity and the right expiration dates for the customer's specific orders. So let's go to our panelists and get real details on how that works in practice. This time, let's start with Kyle from SLS. Kyle?
Thank you, Charles. Yeah, I'm going to start today talking about the hardware that you saw in the video. So we'll start here with the SLS D-Series dock door portal solutions. These dock door portals, they're designed to support high tag volumes in any orientation. And we're able to capture really extremely defined read zones. And that's all doable based on our patented wave antenna technology. We're able to get 3 orientations of beam coming out of our antennas. So the orientation of those tags is less important than your standard patch antennas. All of our portals and hardware have an extruded aluminum enclosure, and that's designed that way to help direct signal in the direction we want to read the tags, as well as they're designed to take a hit should they need to for some reason. They are all run off of power over Ethernet, so there's no AC or DC power required at these dock doors, which helps keep costs down for implementation. We also offer weatherproofing options. These portals can be used for choke points other than a dock door. You can use them at a gate or some area that may be outside, so we can get these weatherproof to protect all of the internal antennas and readers. We also offer stack light and photo eye options that you see in the top right of that picture there. And as the video showed, that helps indicate a good or an incorrect read as you're loading or unloading these dock doors. And the way that these were built is they're designed to be very easily scalable. So we can stand these up in large implementations in just a matter of a few days. And then we'll move along to the SLS pallet wrap station. Now this is the same antenna technology and similar setup to the dock door portal, but we're using one panel here. And these are designed to aggregate the cases on a pallet to drive a print through a Printronics, TSC Printronics printer for a pallet license plate tag. And what this does is it helps us at the dock doors only need to capture one tag, but move all of the product that's on that pallet. So we're using that same antenna technology and getting that really nice tight read zone. And again, we can hit those high tag volumes if needed, and we're running off of PoE. And then next is our T-Series tunnel solutions. So these tunnels they're built to support both reading and bulk encoding of RFID tags if needed. But we're focused here on capturing those cases as they move through and verifying that the correct contents are in that box. So again, we're able to capture those tags in any orientation. And this is important when we have those bags of avocado potentially kind of mixed together in those cases. This is a really important piece for us to be able to capture those tags. We have some options as well to help tag isolation with some RFID shielding curtains. And then these tunnels are also built to fit your conveyor specifically. So that kind of outlines the hardware solutions you saw in the video. And now I'm going to pass this over to our printing partner, Chris.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. The next RFID printer that we saw is our T4000. And this printer has a couple of key attributes for the reason why we saw it at the packing station. This printer has an industrial design that's basically the shape you see in the pictures there. It's a metal enclosure, it's quite rugged, so it's an industrial design, and it has a very small, what we call footprint, basically size. These packing stations can be very tight and cramped. Very often they were designed originally without a printer in mind, and now we're trying to insert a printer onto the packing table. So this printer is an ideal choice for packing stations in food processing facilities where you need the rugged industrial design. This printer is also RAIN RFID, supports our encode during print functionality, and it has multiple printer language support, so you can plug it into an environment where you're already using a different printer language. You can just plug it in and run with it. One key point about this printer and the next printer that I will show is that right out of the box, you can run standard smart labels with this printer, just like we saw your basic paper or poly thin label, but you can also run other tag types like on metal tags. An on metal tag is basically a thick, puffy label that is traditionally quite hard for an RFID printer to work with, but this printer and the next printer can both work with on metal tags right out of the box. Then the next printer we saw is our top of the line T6000E, and we saw that at the pallet wrap station. This printer is designed for the most demanding environments, the highest print volumes, but it also has a key attribute why it is very often used at pallet wrap stations. So what we saw was the printer printing and encoding a 4-inch wide pallet label, but very often pallet labels are 6 inches wide, and this printer comes with the option of a 6-inch print width, so you can do those wider pallet labels. Also, this printer has a very wide temperature operating range, 23 degrees to 104 Fahrenheit. As you know, food processing facilities are very often refrigerated, so that makes this printer a good choice there. And again, just like the T4000, it has out-of-the-box support for not only standard smart labels, but other tag constructions like on metal tags or RTI, that stands for returnable transport item tags. Those are very often a little thicker and stiffer than a traditional smart label. I got a last slide here. This is just showing you an overview of our RFID printer lineup. And the idea here is that we have a very broad suite of printers and options for those printers, so that regardless of your industry or your application, we should have an RFID printer that is well suited to you. And now I'm going to pass it over to Murli to talk a little bit about the software side.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Kyle, as well. Let me talk a bit about what you're about to see. You got to see how Printronix printers work with TrustLink, as well as the D-Series tunnels and D-Series portals from SLS. The message here is ensuring the right product gets palletized and the right product gets loaded. And when I say right products get palletized, it's to make sure the product that you are actually palletizing, it matches what the customer expects. That's the key message here. So to start off with, let's run through the scenario of palletization. So here you see a bunch of process blocks, and they are configurable, which means it can be fully automatic. You could have the D-Series portal standing next to a pallet wrapper, and the pallet wrapper could automatically digitize and encode all of the SSCC and even trigger an SSCC print, which is a pallet label from TrustLink, and then you can peel and stick that. One key thing I'd like to mention is this particular processor may receive avocados from, let's say, not just Rancho Vasquez, it could also be from Drake's Foods or some other avocado farmer. We got to maintain traceability all the way through, and this is where, by using TrustLink and Printronix printers, we're building that nesting, we call it. You could have multiple bags of avocados into one carton. You can print a new GTN label, and now you created another new digital identity, but still maintain traceability back to the farm for that specific bag of avocados. Here we give you an option to actually serialize it manually, but it doesn't have to be. Let's go to the next slide. And then immediately you get to see the SSCC print preview. This, of course, can be done in a handheld that's shown here, as you see in the video, but it also can be done on the workbench as well. One key message, when you saw those cases go through the tunnel, you saw the light turn red or green. How was that done? This is basically driven by the freshness criteria, or even a date criteria set by our lot number criteria, or even I only want avocados from Rancho Vasquez, let's say. So Trustlink can configure the D-Series tunnel to only trigger a red light or a green light when the product matches what you're looking for. And with that, the guy putting the pallet together, the operator putting the pallet together, can only pick the right cartons that's going onto that pallet. So that's how we ensure the right product gets picked and palletized. Let's go on to the tunnel side. So on the trailer load side, even in that scenario, thank you, Chris. I think I wanted to see this slide for a minute. So in this case, where you're seeing is what got palletized. If as an operation manager, you want to confirm what actually got palletized, you can log on to Trustlink and see all the individual cartons and the unique serialization number for each of them. This is where serialization is critical. A lot of our customers still use queues to serialize, to palletize. What happens in that case is you may end up picking up absolutely maybe the right avocados, but it may be the wrong expiration date. And some cases it's done visually, since what they end up doing is they'll scan the same case 6 times. It looks the same, but it may not be the same. In another scenarios, what happens is somebody palletizes that, correctly, but then there was a rush order came in, somebody else came and picked away one case. Next day, you're trying to do the trailer load, and of course it looked right, but since if you had no way to trigger that was the wrong item is on that cart on the pallet, you have no way of knowing it. But by using the D-Series portals from SLS and Trustlink software, you're able to trigger that red light to tell the operator that you have the wrong carton, don't load it, right? This is where Trustlink, working with Printronix and SLS, we're able to ensure the right product gets loaded on the right trailer. And back to you, Charles.
Oh, thank you, Kyle, Chris, and Merle. We've got a number of questions stacked up from the audience. The first one I think is going to go to Kyle. Kyle, is there any concern of reading product on an adjacent door when you do not intend to?
Yeah, thanks, Charles. Great question. So with that multilinear wave antenna that I spoke about earlier in the portals and tunnels, we're able to keep our power settings very low and much lower than the standard patch antennas that some existing RFID projects may be using. And that greatly minimizes our chance of a cross read. So with that low power paired with an RSSI, or a received signal strength indicator, filtering, so basically what that's doing is helping filter out any poor reads, where if we were to read something a little bit too far away, we'll ignore it with that filter. We're able to get that really tight read zone, so we limit any bleed from door to door. Thank you for the question.
Okay, great. Here's another question that I think may go to Merle and maybe Kyle. Is there anything that helps to prevent mislabeled pallets, cubes, or cases? Or if a case is mispicked and mislabeled, does the system fail?
All right, I'll take that and then pass it to Kyle. I think Kyle touched on it already. I think one key aspect is controlling the RSSI level, but more importantly, we always want to recommend catch the problem as early as possible. Catch it in your pick and pack process, right? If you can ensure the right item got picked, that's the best time to catch it. If you can't do that, the next step, of course, is during the palletization process. That's, like we talked about, like we showed it to you, we do using for example, SLS's pallet wrapper station, and we have Printronix splinter waiting right there. Trustlink is driving both of them, which means you're reading all of the individual cartons that are in the pallet the picker went and picked up. And then before you print the SSC, you don't print the SSCC until that pallet matches the order expectation, which means we have some integration with your existing order management system, or even your warehouse management system, whatever it may be. What do you expect that pallet to contain? With that metadata in Trustlink, then Trustlink can now look for those items using the SLS portals, and then only when that's confirmed, we can even have a red green light there as well, or send an SSCC tag to the Printronix printer that you can just peel and stick. Likewise, the same thing applies to the doctor portal, so we ensure that the right product gets loaded onto the trailer.
Yeah.
You want to add something to that? Yeah, please.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, that's exactly right what Merle was mentioning. And what we're doing at implementation is tuning in these antennas, whether it be a tunnel, the pallet wrap station, or your dock door portal. So we're going to have a really solid understanding in your environment or in the environment that we're installing in of the limits of the antennas at the specific location. So we've put tape on the ground to say, hey, anything that comes in this area may be exposed to reading too much, or we're going to guarantee that read within that area. So there are some process things we can do to help identify or give visual cues as to where we can expect to catch those tags to help avoid reading anything we don't want to, in the same case as trying to read the product in that area, so that we make those associations really accurately along the way. So yeah, Murley touched on it very well, and that's a great solution there. Back to you, Charles.
Thank you both. That sounds great. Chris, there's a question in the chat for you. If I want to put RFID labels on, for example, critical assets in my company, can these printers be used for that purpose too? And that'll have to be the last question for this segment. But Chris, if you can give us a brief answer on that, then we'll move on.
Yeah, I can take that. So basically, I kind of translate the question to mean, can the printers be used for multiple different RFID labeling purposes? And the answer is yes. All of the printers we've seen can be used to generate totally different standard smart labels. We've been printing and encoding 4x6 labels and 4x2 labels, but they could be a different form factor. But then again, also the T4000 and the T6000E, they can be used with other physical tag constructions like on metal tags, RTI tags, and so on. Let's say that within your four walls, you want to implement a tool tracking solution. And many of those tools are made out of metal. So you might have to work with on metal tags. You could use the T4000 or T6000E and run those on metal labels through your printer, print and encode them, and set up a totally different solution from what we've been talking about today.
Thanks, Chris. I think that answered the question. So that was the kind of the middle part of the journey. In the interest of time, we kind of compressed what can often be done at multiple steps in the chain, different facilities, operations, food processors, wholesalers, warehouses, distribution centers. But I think we highlighted the ease of more detailed, accurate software validation at critical tracking events of key data elements that will help in FSMA compliance. Now, for the final leg of our journey, let's go to Drake's Mexican Grill, where we'll receive the fresh avocados, show a brief video at the restaurant, then Murley will show our last presentation. We'll open it up for general Q&A. Off to the restaurant.
The final stop of our journey ends at the restaurant. The organic avocados are received quickly and efficiently with a simple wave of the RFID reader. The TrustLink software verifies the RFID data against the electronic manifest, checking for correct count, SKU, expiration date, and any holds or withdrawals for recalls. Receiving is fast, easy, and accurate. Freshly picked avocados made their journey from farm to table with full traceability and are ready to be turned into delicious guacamole.
Well, there you saw it. There was the restaurant, the ease of receipt and proof of delivery. Now let's go back to Murley for further explanation on the receiving process.
Thanks, Charles. I'm going to walk you through a simple receive process wherein either it's a dead drop or a key drop, whatever approach you may have taken on delivering product to a restaurant. In this case, I'm going to demonstrate an RFID reader, but it can actually be simply a barcode reader as well, where you're scanning the barcodes to confirm the right product was received at the restaurant. So in this situation, I'm going to make this somewhat manual. That way you can see the steps that we go through, but it can all be one single read RFID. But in this process, I'm going to show you, let's scan the RFID container label for it, which is SSCC. So we'll do that, and then it gets all the metadata for that SSCC. And as soon as we do that, it also, I think somebody asked about the mispick, right? So we're now in the event mispick did happen. What we're doing now is we're going to confirm each of the when you do the verify container, which again can be automatic, but let's click the verify container button. The moment you do that, it now pulls down what is expected, what are the 6 cases that are expected as part of the seed process, and then it gives you a list of that. And if you stay on this screen for a moment, so this is obviously a serialized number. It can be any kind of metadata. In today's world, what happens at a QSR is they basically scan, if it happens to be 6 avocado cases, they'll just scan the first case 6 times typically. And oftentimes the avocado processors are also not serializing the cartons too, which tends to people picking up the wrong cartons and sometimes even the wrong expiration date. More importantly, what if there was a recall? What if while this product was in transit, the processor discovered some issues and they wanted to put it on hold? And the way it happens today is they'll call around each of the restaurants, the tailor company, whoever it is, to let them know that, hey, that product that is en route to you has to be disposed or returned back to them. But Trustly can trigger a red flag what to do. And the other challenge that we see restaurants and QSRs and even grocers face is the whole claim process. And it's been very painful for them because typically what they do is they will call, email, send pictures back and forth, and there's lack of trust because of, well, there was no proof, and or even short and long, for example. This is where we allow the restaurant, for example, to take a picture of the product and upload it and even send some comments along with it to enable the claim management, to fast track the claim management process. Let's go to the next slide. So here, if you're an operations manager at the processor, you're logging on to TrustLink Workbench. You saw the slide before where you get to see all the cartons in that pallet. But let's say one of them got rejected for whatever reason, either it was the wrong kind, the wrong product, or actually there was damage there as well. And another key point here is Chris talked about earlier, where we can use temperature sensor loggers to keep track of temperature data. Let's say this product had a temperature sensor associated with the product and it was logging all the way through. And throughout its journey, it was fine, but towards the last leg, there was a temperature spike. We could now trigger an alert, which the notification can go to the restaurant manager as well as to the processor or even to the farmer if you so choose. And by being able to keep track of the temperature data and associate it to specific pallet or a carton, you're able to now get visibility throughout the supply chain. Here you see a picture of the product that got uploaded by the restaurant manager. So we provide visibility of the product throughout the supply chain. The restaurant at the end can provide feedback and claims through our trusting solution. Back to you, Charles.
Oh, thanks, Murley. We've got a few more questions in the chat. So I think this one is addressed to Murley at the restaurant. What kind of software is on premise, or what kind of connectivity is required? How does your software work there?
Good question. So, I think it is a configurable option. We do recommend RFID, but it can also be a simple label. So the software per se is dependent on what kind of marker you're using. TrustLink is flexible that way. You could just use barcodes, and in some cases we do QR codes as well. GS1 barcodes or GS1 digital and QR codes could also work, which means a simple mobile device would suffice. The software-wise, there's a TrustLink mobile receive app, we call it, is what we would deliver for you. Of course, it's connected to TrustLink Cloud, SaaS platform. That's how we're building the two. And if you're actually printing and encoding tags, which you're probably not doing that much in the restaurant, but let's say you are transferring product to another sister restaurant. In that scenario, you want to print some labels out. We could use a Printronix printer to drive that. And if you're a larger QSR and you're receiving a lot of product, you don't want to be using handhelds and you don't want to scan each case, then you could actually put an SLS portal in your cooler as part of your entry process. Especially coolers may not have Wi-Fi connectivity in them, so you may need an offline module as well. So depending on the needs that you may have, we can configure the right printer, right SLS solution with the right TrustLink software to go with that.
Thank you, Murley. I think we now kind of open up the panel to questions from every process, the farmer, the food processor, the wholesaler, and distributor. And I'm kind of going to go back in time. I see one that's coming up around the tunnels for Kyle. Kyle, in the tunnels, how do you avoid reading the wrong carton when several are close to each other?
Yeah, thanks, Charles. Another good question. So, in addition to utilizing the antenna and RSSI filtering, we have recommended box spacing to help with errant reads of an incorrect carton. So we utilize a photo eye at the start of the read so that the antennas are not on until that desired carton is inside the tunnel. So the antennas will actually be turned off until that photo eye is broken by the case we're intending to read. And this helps us keep that power as low as possible and only focused on the carton inside of our tunnel. And if that box spacing requirement, or recommendation can't be met, then we have some RFID blocking curtains that'll help contain that signal at the entrance and exit of the tunnel, just to really keep that signal in and avoid any sort of reading of boxes entering or boxes exiting. Thank you.
Great. The next question, Chris, I'm seeing someone wanting for you to elaborate more on the mobile printer they saw at the farmer. What's so special about that?
I would say that the key special thing about that printer is that it's allowing us to digitize the product right there at the point of harvest. Murley talked a lot about that. The sooner you can digitize the product, the sooner you can check the digital identities, that's always better. If you do those processes later in the food supply chain, you risk mixing up batches, confusing batches, and so on. So the key special attribute is that it allows us to digitize the product as early as possible. And now, I don't know if the question is specifically about hardware specs. I can provide you with the hardware specs on that printer. It has RFID auto calibration built in. It has our encode during print functionality for greater speed and greater compatibility with different label constructions. And it can work with labels that just have a gap to save you money on the labels.
Thanks, Chris. Another question that's coming to the group, what if I already have barcodes?
Sure, I think I'll take that one. Chris, jump in if you want to add on to that. So if you already have barcodes and if you're already printing barcodes, what we would try to and RFID made the best sense for you, we would try to replace your printer with an RFID printer. So visually the label will look the same, but that you have, assuming it is GSM compliant and it fits your needs. And then we will encode what's needed using Printronix printers driven by TrustLink. But in the event your processes are already streamlined and you really do not want to change your process, what we end up doing is add an automatic step right after, wherein the printer prints as it is today, but we replace the media with a smart label, which has an RFID tag and a chip in it, of course. And then in the next step, either SLS tunnel, for example, is a good example, but typically it may be just a handheld where you would use the handheld to read the barcode and then isolate the tag and write the metadata to that tag. And that's another way to digitize. So that way we can minimize any impact to your existing processes. Back to you, Charles.
Chris, did you have anything to add on that? I thought I saw you say you had something to add on that. Nope. Okay.
No, I don't think
That's fine.
so. Maybe I would just add in there that we like to see RFID as sort of a super complement to barcoding. RFID brings in all of the advantages that it has that people traditionally speak of. For example, you can read multiple cartons in one pass, as opposed to with barcoding, you can only read one barcode at a time. You can also automate your processes much more easily. For example, you saw the forklift driving through the dock doors. Regardless of the orientation of the pallet, you don't need to line it up perfectly with a barcode reader at the portal. Instead, you can just load the pallet up, drive it through, and it works. And finally, you don't need the line of sight. So that's all I would add.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Kyle, I see a question in here that I think is up your alley. Are the products we saw fixed size, or that it can be any variability? I guess it could go the whole group, but maybe Kyle, you start with that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Charles. Yeah, so SLS is the OEM of these products, and they're all built to order. So, we have standard sizes. For instance, with the dock door portals, we have a standard 8-foot version that fits at most dock doors. And then we also have a 5-foot version that is standard for us to help with more like man doors or any sort of manual pushing of product from one area to another where you don't need an 8-foot unit. We have those standard products, but because we are the OEM, we are able to adjust and create custom built sizes and shapes of our product for our customers. So especially with the tunnels, those are really all built custom based on the customer's conveyor height, width, product or max case height. It'll all be built so that it fits right over your conveyor, as you saw in the video, and mounted directly into the ground. So, to kind of summarize there, we like to push our standard product because you can get it faster and it installs very easily because we know what we're doing with them, but we are always open to tailoring the product to fit the customer's environment and what they may need within their 4 walls. So yeah, thanks for the question.
Great. I think we have one last question we can get through today, and it's kind of a general one. How do we increase the visibility? I already see orders in my order management system. How does TrustLink help with visibility through the supply chain? Marley?
Really good question. I think I hear this a lot. I think we would go talk to our customers, and of course they're like, hey, we already have visibility. We know, we can see it on our dashboards. And if you dig a little deeper, what you usually find out is they have a good auto manual visibility. This particular order was for this product, and it got shipped from here to here, and the customer got a purchase order to pay for that, or you sent the invoice, you got the purchase order back. So you will have all that visibility through your ERP system or even a warehouse management system. Where the challenge comes about is getting the item level visibility. And we even have customers not able to, if we ask them, do you have any loss because you can't find the product, or you did not find your short dated product that you should have shipped today. And oftentimes they can't tell you that because they are using SKU numbers oftentimes and not always using expiration dates, for example. We have customers who would receive a whole pallet full of water, which may have a mixed collection of expiration dates. They'll scan one box and put in a new lot number and put an expiration date, which may work well in the short term, but longer term, when you have high throughput, you may end up you're leaving money on the table. This is where digitizing, to Chris's point, digitizing each carton, each box with an RFID tag with serialized works well. Yes, you can use barcodes, but we've seen so many examples where people are not scanning barcodes because it is a manual effort. It takes a lot of work. Now, RFID does require you to tweak your process a bit. To do that, by doing that, you're gaining a lot more visibility, but not just within your 4 walls, throughout the supply chain. You're actually able to upsell your product to your customers that they can get more visibility as well. So I think visibility is critical, right? So this is where, combination of TrustLink, Printronix, and SLS gives you that power to get that visibility.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I believe that takes us to the end of our journey today from the restaurant, from the farm to the restaurant. We saw and heard about printing and digitization solutions and automations in processing, shipping, storage, receiving. And I also add, we saw some on holds and some claims management also in the receiving process. I guess there's one last question that I will take, which is, how do I get more information? So we will respond to the questions that we couldn't get to in the live seminar today and wrap up. And I want to just thank the audience for all the great participation and questions. And our contact information is right here on the website, and the QR codes for our panelist experts was provided earlier. So thank you all for your day, and I want to thank you and have a great day.